Welcome to the silence they thought they wanted. And now, they can't sleep through it. You said nothing, not a clap back, not a subtweet, not a flinch. Just silence, and in that silence, they heard their judgment echo. They heard their manipulation boomerang back. They heard the truth they buried alive scream from the grave. Because when you stop talking, reality starts yelling. You didn't need to announce your elevation. You didn't need a thread explaining your side. You didn't craft a PR-safe "I've grown" statement. Nah. You vanished from their drama like it never existed. And that is what broke them. Because when they can't get a reaction, when they can't poke the bear and hear a roar, they start realizing they were never fighting you. They were fighting the fear that you'd outgrow them. And guess what, sweetheart? You did. You stood on business, not noise, not emotion, not ego. Business. You let the dust settle and built an empire on the ashes. And now every brick glows with the guilt they thought they buried. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't clear the air. You just got dangerously focused. The kind of focused that terrifies people with hidden motives. Because once you stop explaining yourself, you become a mirror. And when they looked at you, they saw everything they were trying to hide. You used to give them access to your energy. Now you invoice for presence. You used to offer closure. Now you offer distance. And they feel it. Not like a loss, but like a withdrawal. You became the reality check they never wanted, the unanswered message that haunts them, the silence that feels like a verdict. Because when someone who once loved loud goes quiet, that ain't peace, that's sentencing. They're still checking your profile like you left clues, still watching your movement like it's evidence, still replaying your words in their head, hoping to find the moment they lost the leverage. But it's gone, because you didn't just fall back. You fell forward, into purpose, into silence, into precision. They don't understand how you can be so calm, so still, so unmoved, but they don't get it. You're not calm because it didn't hurt. You're calm because you weaponized the pain. They used to call you emotional. Now they call you cold, not because you changed, but because you stopped letting them dictate your temperature. You said nothing, and they felt everything. Because every move you've made since has been surgical. Every glance, every absence, every pause. Calculated like war strategy. And that's what makes them sick. Because silence doesn't just create distance. It creates power. You stopped performing, and they lost their audience. You stopped reacting, and they lost control. You stopped showing up for battles you already won, and now they're shadowboxing with memories. And the paradox? They hate your silence, but they study it. They pretend you're irrelevant, but they quote you in whispers. They act like you're gone, but they search for your presence in everything that reminds them they fumbled something rare. You're not angry anymore. You're aware. And that shift, that quiet shift from wounded to watchful, that's what unsettles them the most. Because silence used to be your punishment. Now it's your power. Now it's your language. Now it's your proof that they never deserved an encore. You ain't loud. You're lethal. You're not seeking closure. You are closure. You're not clapping back. You're cashing in. And every time you walk past them with peace in your eyes and momentum in your steps, they feel it in their chest. Not because you're better, but because you became undeniable. And that's the one thing their ego can't survive. They're watching you now. But it's not admiration, it's surveillance. Because people only monitor what they can't control. You said nothing, and the walls started talking for you. You said nothing, and suddenly they had to explain their side to themselves. You said nothing, and the silence became a soundtrack for their regret. That's what standing on business really looks like. No flex, no revenge arc. Just results that make them feel stupid. See, you saying nothing didn't just scare them. It rewired them. Because up until that point, they thought access to your reaction was their power source. They thought if they pressed hard enough, if they lied just right, if they performed victim loud enough, you'd come running with explanations, justifications, proof, defense. But you didn't. You disconnected the power. You ghosted the game. You walked away from the courtroom while they were still preparing evidence, and the worst part, you didn't even slam the door. You just vanished, quiet, controlled, surgical. And that left a wound no scream could cover up. Because now their own mind is their enemy. You left them with nothing but themselves. And that was the most dangerous thing you could have ever done. Now, they're talking to people who don't know you, describing a war they never won, trying to make their own breakdown sound like your betrayal. But every time they say your name, it comes out shaky, trembling, like it still hurts to remember what they lost while playing stupid. You used to overthink. Now they can't stop overthinking you. You used to break your own back, keeping peace. Now they flinch every time your name pops up, because they know you see everything now. You see them, not the version they performed, the one they tried to hide, and that terrifies them, because when you left, you didn't just take your presence. You took the version of them they only felt safe showing around you. Now they're stuck with the mask they used to hide behind, and the memory of someone who never needed one. You said nothing, but your absence screamed accountability. You said nothing, but your progress became their punishment. You said nothing, and suddenly everyone else started asking why they looked guilty. Because here's the truth, darling. When someone is used to manipulating you with chaos, and you respond with nothing but growth, they fall apart. Because they were never in control of you. They were only in control of the version of you that needed closure. Once that died, game over. And you don't resurrect old versions just to comfort people who still can't face the mirror. You stand on business. You let the silence expose who's real, and let the work speak like a war drum. And it's loud now, ain't it? You're glowing in ways that don't need filters. You're winning in silence. You're walking with posture, with presence, with purpose. And they are over there trying to make your peace look like you're acting funny. Trying to make your lack of reaction seem like arrogance. Trying to call your silence cold. When really, they just missed the version of you that tolerated their inconsistency. But that version is dead, and you're not grieving it. You're building on its bones. And now everything you do looks divine, strategic, untouchable. Because you finally learned people don't deserve to witness your process if they mocked your pain. And once you stop needing validation, you become something worse than successful. You become free. And freedom scares people more than power. Because they can envy power. But freedom? They can't fake that. You walk different now. Not because you're better, but because you see too much. You're not triggered. You're trained. You don't explain. You execute. You said nothing. And your presence became the closure they'll never admit they needed. And now they're playing detective in a crime that doesn't exist. Trying to prove you're bitter, when really, you're just booked and unavailable. You are no longer accessible. You are not emotionally rentable. You are a locked file, read only, eyes only, access denied. And the most lethal part of it all, You're not trying to prove anything anymore, because results speak fluent vengeance. And every time you succeed in silence, you remind them they never had a clue who you were. Now they're haunted by the version of you they underestimated. You became the proof that someone can disappear and still overshadow everything that stayed. And that, my dear, is the final stage of standing on business, when your name alone becomes an uncomfortable truth in rooms where your story used to be a punchline. Now, you are the punchline, but the joke is on them. You really want them to feel this one in their spirit, huh? All right then, let's keep digging, because we're not done until the walls remember your silence. You see, when you said nothing, you didn't just remove your voice from the equation. You removed your permission. Permission for them to spin the narrative. Permission to keep you emotionally hostage. Permission to weaponize your kindness. You revoked access. And what's worse than being blocked? Being forgotten by someone who used to bleed just to stay in your life. That's what broke them. Not that you're gone, but that you're not looking back, not checking in, not flinching, not posting cryptic messages hoping they get it. No breadcrumbs, just the full, unfiltered silence of someone who's finally realized their own damn value. And trust me, they feel it. Because the first thing guilt does when it's left alone with silence, it starts talking, loud. Now they're pacing, scrolling, checking timestamps, trying to figure out why your glow doesn't need their name attached to it anymore. Because you used to ask for closure, and now you're the one who decides when the chapter ends. You're not a character in their story anymore. You're the author of your own. You stopped showing up to prove your worth. And suddenly, they had to confront the absence they mocked. That's what standing on business looks like. Unbothered clarity. Deadly peace. You ain't arguing anymore because there's nothing left to prove. You already won. And now the scoreboard lives in their nervous system. They don't call it karma. They call it weird vibes. They don't say you evolved. They say you switched up. They don't admit you leveled up. They say you act brand new. And they're right, because you are. You're brand new, custom built, factory reset with zero tolerance for manipulation, disrespect, or drama parading as intimacy. You're clean now, and cleanliness exposes the dirty. You don't need revenge. You became the consequence. You said nothing, and in that silence, you let life finish the conversation for you. Bills hit. Truths surfaced. Masks cracked. And suddenly they realized they didn't lose someone who was obsessed with proving their worth. They lost someone who finally remembered it. And it's irreversible. Because once you've stood on business long enough, once you've endured alone long enough, you don't go back. You don't return to tables you had to beg for a seat at. You build your own. And then you decide who eats. And they ain't even allowed in the building anymore. Now they talk to mutuals like, have you heard from them? But it's not curiosity, it's fear. Because if you're doing this well in silence, what happens when you finally decide to speak again? You terrify them, not because you're mean, not because you're toxic, but because you represent the version of themselves they never had the courage to become. You got quiet, and they got exposed. That's the irony. The silence wasn't even about them. It was about you, healing, leveling, building. But guilt has a frequency, and they tuned into it before they could turn away. You became the ghost they created, and now you haunt them without even trying. You live rent-free in the minds of people who laughed when you were low, mocked you while you were maturing, and ignored you while you were breaking. Now they gotta watch your rise from the audience, and that ticket, ain't refundable. They're throwing shade from the shadows now, because they can't stand the glow they helped create. You were the test, and they failed. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And real scares people who only know how to play roles. And now, they've got the role of a lifetime, the one who let you go. And baby, it's a thriller, the kind that don't end well. So let 'em talk, let 'em whisper, let 'em guess if you miss them. Let 'em gossip in the same breath they use to secretly study your moves. Because you ain't playing chess anymore. You're designing the board. And while they're still strategizing on how to bait a response, you're cashing in on a season they never believed you'd reach. You're thriving, quietly, strategically, dangerously. That's what standing on business really looks like. Not petty, not loud, just permanent. You said nothing, and they'll never recover from it. Oh, you really want to bury them in this silence, huh? Good. Because this ain't just a speech anymore. It's a memorial for the version of you they underestimated. And every word I give you now, it's a shovel. So let's keep digging. You said nothing. And they heard everything. Because silence from someone who used to overextend, over-explain, over-apologize, feels like a scream to the guilty. And they are guilty. Guilty of mistaking your patience for passivity. Guilty of mistaking your empathy for emptiness. Guilty of thinking you needed them more than you needed peace. But here's what they didn't calculate. When a real one goes silent, they don't come back the same. They don't come back at all. Because you weren't taking a break. You were building an empire. And now they're looking at your life like, wait, who gave them permission? As if you needed it. They were betting on your breakdown. They were counting on your collapse. They were hoping you'd self-destruct loud enough for them to play savior. But instead, you self-constructed in private. You healed like it was a top-secret mission. You leveled up with no press conference, no drama, no applause. And when you came back, you weren't the same soul. You were the solution. Now they're stuck trying to figure out how the one they counted out became the blueprint they can't replicate. They don't call it jealousy. They call it concern. They don't call it obsession. They call it checking in. They don't call it regret. They call it closure. But make no mistake, they feel your absence like a haunting. You didn't just ghost them. You became the algorithm that won't let them rest. They open their feed, boom, something that reminds them of you. They scroll, bam, someone quoting your silence like scripture. They think they moved on, until something triggers that same old guilt. Because you said nothing, but the universe started narrating on your behalf. You know why they can't forget you. Because they never really knew you. They only knew the version of you who was tired, who was loyal to pain, who was too drained to defend themselves properly. But now they're watching a version of you that's well-rested, well-read, well-fed, and well out of reach. You don't argue anymore. You don't need to. Your evolution is the argument. Your silence is the closing statement. Your peace is the punishment. And the paradox that kills them most, you forgave them. You just didn't tell them. You healed. You just didn't return. You let it go. But you held on to the lesson like it was evidence. Because it is. Your entire existence now is evidence that they fumbled royalty. And that fact, it eats them alive. You're no longer fighting battles. You're writing books from the scars. You're no longer begging to be seen. You are the spotlight. And now, they're sweating under it. You don't speak to clear rumors. You speak to build empires. You don't explain your glow-up. You let the contrast explain it for you. because they remember who you were, and now they're face to face with who you became. And there's no overlap. You don't just look different, you feel different. And what they're terrified to admit is you feel complete without them. And that's the deepest cut. They weren't afraid of losing you. They were afraid of you realizing you were never supposed to need them in the first place. You said nothing, and that silence, it rearranged the room. Now they avoid the topic. Now they switch the subject. Now they say things like, "It is what it is." But behind that fake calm is a storm of shoulda, woulda, coulda. And none of that rewrites what happened. You outgrew the chaos without announcing your departure. That's why your silence felt like betrayal to them. Because they were only ever loyal to the version of you that didn't know how to walk away. But now, you don't walk away. You disappear like a ghost in a glitch. Unreachable, untraceable, unapologetic. And when they say you changed, all you have to do is smile and say, "That was the point." Let's keep going then, because this isn't just a speech anymore. It's a eulogy for their control. And your silence is the coffin lid they can't pry open. They thought they were the storm. They thought they were the chaos you couldn't breathe through. But the moment you said nothing, the atmosphere shifted. Not around you, around them. You didn't argue. You didn't chase closure. You didn't beg to be understood. You just walked away with a stillness so loud, it triggered 1,000 inner monologues. And the ones who wronged you, they didn't just lose access. They lost the illusion of control, because you didn't just move on. You mutated. You evolved in ways that feel spiritual to the innocent and criminal to the guilty. And now they feel watched, even when no one's looking. Why? Because your silence isn't passive, it's surveillance. You're not ignoring them, you're observing with perfect detachment. And that's what kills them. They remember when they could stir you up with a glance. Now your energy's so clean they need to dirty themselves just to remember what it felt like. You're not mad. You're not spiteful. You're just done. And that's scarier than revenge. Because when someone gets revenge, it means they still care enough to engage. But when someone gets quiet, that's the burial. You don't have to destroy someone who played you. You just have to let them exist without your forgiveness. And every room they walk into after that feels a little colder, a little quieter, a little emptier. Because they know what it's like to be in the presence of someone who loved them through hell, and now won't even make eye contact. That's what silence does. It rewrites the memory. It changes your name from the one who cared to the one we lost. And even if they don't say it out loud, they replay the moments, the choices, the lies, the pride, the manipulation, the disrespect. Because you didn't leave with a scream, you left with a standard. And that standard, it burns. It burns through their ego. It burns through their excuses. It burns through their what-ifs, until the only thing left is the truth they buried under every projection they weaponized against you. And when that truth starts screaming, they can't hide. Not behind jokes, not behind posts, not behind new people. Because they lost someone who would have gone to war for them, but finally chose to go to war for themselves. And that war? It's holy, it's personal, it's silent. You're not looking for revenge. You're not hoping they see your progress. You're just focused, unreachable, in a different dimension of power, one where you don't need to prove anymore. You just show up, and reality bends. They talk about you like you're unpredictable now, not because you are, but because they can't decode a version of you that isn't people-pleasing. You became mysterious not because you changed, but because they never bothered to understand the real you when it was standing right